Guest for today, Roshni Sachdeva, is an MBA graduate from SP Jain Institute. Interestingly, this is an institute that has a tri-city model. This is the first time I'm hearing of this, with their students doing one semester each in Singapore, Dubai, and Sydney. So Roshni has had some experience of life in different settings. Apart from that, as I was just talking to her, she said she has an army background. So she has experienced life in various cities of or various states of our country too. So that has led her to see a lot of diversity in life at a very young age. So currently she's working with MindTickle. This is a SaaS company. And I looked it up, Roshni. SaaS stands for Software as a Service.
Service, yeah.
Yes. She's based in Pune. You're based in Pune, right?
Yep.
She's an avid golf player and also a badminton player. And she loves animals and being outdoors. But her hobbies don't end there. She can cook an awesome spread, she says. But for that, the crowd has to be right. And I hope to be part of that crowd sometime.
Definitely.
So, Roshni, you say that you hope to change the world one day at a time. So, let's hear what you have to say on this perspective, in this way, how we can change the world one day at a time.
So I mean, as you know, you correctly said that I'm coming from a really diverse place and having met so many people and having lived in so many places, and it all sounds so amazing and it sounds so exciting to hear this from somebody. But people usually forget the times I've gotten lost in new places, the times I had to remember a road's name probably 20 times and say it out loud to my parents so that I don't get lost while coming back home from school. So these were just small things that I had to go through, other than feeling the anxiety when I see a group of friends and I'm just like, oh, why can't I be there? And the whole process of actually going there and making your way and speaking about yourself, I think that has made me the person I am today. And changing the world every day at a time is kind of it's a tough spot to be in, I feel, because you want something changing on a regular basis. But obviously we know that things are huge now, and I mean, every small contribution is a contribution. So yeah,
it's a
I
drop
mean, I
in the
have
ocean, but every drop counts.
Exactly, it does count, and believing that, I move forward. And I have this one thing in my head that we all make mistakes, but for many it can be a process where we lose confidence and self-esteem, and they're not really able to come up or develop out of it. So I mean, these are some of the things that I like to delve deeper into. Although I'm from an engineering background, that hasn't stopped me from going into things which are psychologically related.
Absolutely.
So this is a little bit about myself. I'm not gonna bore you guys more.
No, we are going to make you interest us, or we want to hear more about you. So
Happy
with
to.
that, and I absolutely understand. Possibly your life in your childhood and growing years was the world changing one day at a time. So I like to relate that to your now coming to a place where you want to change the world one day at a time.
Yeah.
But if you were to describe yourself in just 3 words, what would you say about yourself?
Just 3 words. This is tough because spread happiness always.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
And
have
this
you
is
always
also, I mean, it is always, it's actually inculcated in me by my father, because he believes that, if just passing a smile may be contagious to, someone else smiling, just do it. Like, how much does it cost you? And the way he's explained me these things, and, the way he's told me not to expect a lot in life, and everything had a story. I know, like, all parents tell us these stories in life, and, this is what happened 10 years back, and this is how I used to go to school, and like various stories. All morals in my life I've learned with some stories being spoken by him. So it is, been like that. And yeah, I mean, I love the idea of spreading happiness, because I feel not many get it, like on their own. I mean, they're finding, and I see so many posts on social media trying to find happiness, and read this post daily so that you can be happy, or like different kind of things. And I used to find it very odd while growing up, that why do you need to find happiness? You can just smile.
Yes.
But then obviously, as I grew up, I realized there are complications, and then there's life, and things start to creep in, and obviously it takes down your the level of, yes. So I think, I mean, helping that in any way for anybody, I think, is a huge achievement, I would say.
Absolutely. So your father has influenced you a lot in making you what you are, in shaping you into what you are now. Who else has helped?
My mom. I mean, and I'm not just saying this because they'll be like, oh, you didn't take our names while saying who inspires you. But honestly speaking, like, I feel, my parents have always tried to stem these habits in me at a very, very young age. When they did not tell me you have to be rich or you have to be successful, but they taught me you have to be kind and you have to do things for people. And we never spoke about getting back. We always spoke about giving. So at one point when I was small, I used to just be like, okay, we are giving all this, but what are we getting in turn? And, they'll just be like, nothing. You will know, you'll get something in turn when you grow up. So now that I've grown up, I feel that, all the positive vibes and the energy and the bountiful of resources that I have with me every single day, I'm grateful for all of that. And, I'd like to, I mean, just dedicate all of it to my early days, where, we used to do things for people in the society, or like just hosting lunches and just going to, there was this society actually in Bangalore called Trill. It's a NGO organization, I think. We were also associated with them. And my mother believes in, taking care of the AVA section in the army, which is Army Wives Welfare Association, where she's taking care of ladies, whose husbands are soldiers, and they've like gone up to the border, they've gone up to field postings, and just taking care of them and trying to, indulge them into hobbies and like knitting and tailoring and like things like that. I mean, I knew that she's not getting anything out of it, but she's just still immerse herself into it, like I think 10 hours a day. And I used to just, flip, because I used to be like, why? Like, you can go play golf. But that's what I think, it starts at home. And if you start at home and if you start it right, it carries on.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So what interests me is that this is the first time I'm talking on these matters to someone who's associated with the army life. So you have been moving from place to place, right?
Yeah.
So do you feel that you had a safe childhood?
Okay, so I've changed precisely 13 schools in my life. Oh. And whenever I say this to somebody, their eyes just widen, and they want to like ask me which all places. But before that, I stop them because I usually get confused. So, but it's been a crazy ride, and 13 schools is not an easy thing. Although my parents try to keep me in a very confined environment, they try to keep me very protected, and all of that. Although isn't really safe, I would say, even after so many things, and like coming from a place where there are like cant fences and like soldiers on the gate with guns and whatnot. But it was still not so safe, because I'll tell you an incident. I'll not disclose the place or the name,
Yeah.
but I'll just tell you this incident that happened. Me and my brother used to go for a drawing class. And this used to be every afternoon at 4 o'clock. And this was outside the cant. And this was after my school, which used to end at 2 p.m. So we used to come back, we used to have lunch, and then we used to rush to this class. Now, the first week, this lady was, normal, and she used to just ask us to sketch and doodle or whatever. But after a week, it came to a point where, she used to kind of melt the candle onto the skin if you wouldn't do your homework, or if you wouldn't get your drawing book, or you wouldn't get your sketches. And this would, result us like rushing inside under the sofas and like hiding and like like really like walking around for our lives. I mean, we used to just and then slowly my parents actually realized the different character I was projecting, because me and my brother were threatened that if you say this out loud, it's going to be bad for you. And as kids, you really don't want to, like, you're just like, okay, fine, you're so submissive, and you give in. So, and that's what we did, although it did affect our mental health and the way we were projecting ourselves at home. So that gap between 2 to 4, my parents in about 2 to 3 days realized that there is something up, because right before the class, we used to kind of hesitate. I used to suddenly be like, oh, my stomach's hurting. My brother would be like, my head's hurting. And we used to just come up with excuses. And this is the cue to understand that maybe something's not right. And very, very, intuitively, as they say, like every parent has an intuition. So my mom told my dad to, just follow the vehicle, because if we would know this, we would just like shiver and just like, tell him that please don't come with us and all that. So we were usually, as, normal it would be, we got dropped at that lady's place. And within 15 or 20 minutes, my dad stops his car outside and he walks in. And as luck would have it, the door was not locked. So he unlocked the handle and he comes in, and he finds my brother hidden inside the bed. I mean, he's under the bed, and I'm hidden in the washroom. And, I'd locked myself from inside, and this lady had switched off the lights. So, I was scared and I was timid, and I was like, I just didn't know what's going to happen that day, because I forgot to get my drawing book. And so when she tried to hit me or something, my brother was like, don't you dare, or something like that. So she came after the both of us. And then my dad entered, and, he saw all this, and he was shocked, because he hadn't thought this, in a million years, that something like this would be happening with my kids. And he just like, and then he came in, and then this teacher, she crawls under the bed and, pulls out my brother and says, oh, we were just playing a game, very casually. And my dad knew like what's up. So he just like, he pulled his hand from her hand. He got me out of the washroom, picked me up, and just told her that I'll see you in court. And both of us were very, like, oh my God, she's still gonna like, do things, and she's gonna melt wax on us. Because we'd seen this with our friends happening in the house. So, and that's when we went back, and we, my mom, she came outside, she gave us water to drink. Then it wasn't even like, both of them just pounced on us and started asking us what happened and why it happened, and were you abused, or was this, because it's a little sensitive topic for a kid. You can't expect him or her to be as open about it as you are in adult life. So, and they knew it, I guess, because they handled it so superbly. And, they took their time and they gave us water, and we were still quiet. We were actually waiting for them to come in and ask us, like, what happened. They did not. eventually, me and my brother, like we made a pact that we're gonna tell our parents, like in a progressive fashion, and we'll see what their reaction is, because that matters to us a lot. So before we could say anything, our parents said that this lady, she's not gonna lay a finger on you ever again. You can rest assured of that. And that was a huge satisfaction, because the whole reason of us keeping quiet was the fact that she might go ahead and do something again. So then we narrated the whole story from day one, and how it progressed and how it snowballed into, she being like a terror and a nuance into our lives. And yeah, I mean, and then finally, she was actually doing this to boys also. And like usually there's a conception about only girls being harassed in the society, and I feel that is not the case, because it's not really the gender here which lures people like this to do things, but it's the sick mentality that people find amusing while doing things like this, which is gender neutral. So
Absolutely true.
yeah, so this is one of the incidents that happened with me, and I would say that things like this you can't really stop, but what you do about it matters. So
Exactly. And how old
yeah,
were you and your brother when this happened?
so I was in third grade, and I was like 8 years old, and he was 7 years old. We have a 1 year difference, and yeah.
It was a very, very tender age.
It was a very tender age. It was, your mind can just be molded into anything you want at that point. Like, I mean, somehow we both got out of it, and we didn't let it scar us. And, to be very honest and to be bluntly honest here, I would say that there are more horrid things happening in the society than this. And so, yeah, like,
But for you and
that's
your
how it
brother,
is.
at that moment, it was the worst thing that could have happened ever. So
Yeah.
there is no saying that there are worse things. For you, it was a horrible time.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely,
uh,
it was.
I'm so happy that your parents could handle it that way.
Yes, because that
So,
was a huge learning for us also. Like, I mean, we saw that, and we just like put ourselves in their shoes. And, especially now when I look back at these situations, I feel, that was such a tough situation, because you're so possessive about your kids, and you just want to like take a very sudden step, and firstly, or maybe even like snub. There are so many people who feel that kids opinion isn't as important as an adult's, and they usually just like let it go, and they want proof and things like that. I don't know how to react if at that point my parents would have asked me, did you click a picture, or how do I believe you, or anything like this. I don't know what my reaction would have been, or I don't know how I would have, further on. I probably would have just like kept quiet. I won't have, said anything further. So I would say for a child, creating a Zen zone, okay, like is really important, because a Zen zone, in the sense that you are kind of creating a place where all words or all sentences are not judged. They are not being said so that there is a response. Sometimes you just want to like talk to a friend who does not tell you an advice. He or she just listens to you, because that's all you want at that point. You just want someone to listen, and you take an action on it or not, that is later. That comes a little later after the discussion. But like the whole concept of creating a safe space has originated from wanting to be heard, not to be answered. That every human being should behave properly to every human being, irrespective of who they are. So normal norms like pulling a chair or pushing a door, or things like this, in many I wouldn't name again, because I don't want to get into controversies, but politicians, the way they say it, that why even ask for a guy to push your door if you want equality? That is just a small chivalrous task that a guy is doing. It is not, will it be embarrassing for the guy if the girl pushes the door or she pulls the chair for him? So until and unless you're not able to see it vice versa, it's very hard to understand the essence of gender equality. So I feel it like, I come from a family which is very open, and we're Punjabis. And I mean, not that it says anything about who you are, but usually my family is a little, open to boys and girls, and like whatever was recommended to my brother to do in life, the same was recommended to me. And there I didn't experience any kind of discrimination. Although when I did start working, I mean, there were just these small instances where, like if like you ask for a separate lunch to discuss about, certain, things that you want to. I'm not saying it's everywhere, because my current company is amazing, it's superb. But like, earlier in the days when I had started working, and if I'd asked for like a small takeout time to just sit and just discuss about, certain things that are happening, it would be termed as, something else from 10 other employees in my office. Like it would be like, oh, look, she's working her way up. I mean, it's a label that I feel most women are trying to fight most of the time. But as I grew up, like my mom, she told me this on my 20th birthday. She told me that she realized it very late, but she tells me to realize this early, to not care. And when she says to not care, she's not saying don't care about like people or like small issues or like whatever. She's trying to tell me don't care about these labels that society is putting on you, or like, because these people are always going to speak. They're always going to, label you for something that you're not. And you can't always fight it with words or with, taking action. Sometimes it's just best to, just like let it cool down, because today it's you, tomorrow it's going to be someone else. It's just how the cookie crumbles in the corporate. Again, I feel, there was this beautiful poem that I read while I was growing up, which had this one line in it, which said, will you be history or, will you make history or will you be history? So the fact is that, are you going to just repeat the same things that have been happening all throughout your lives, or are you going to change it and make it, maybe on the same line, but with your little twist in it? So entitlement, yes. I feel people do get, a bit entitled when there is some sort of an inequality in homes, in office workspaces, in, other places. But I also feel that people are rising above it, and there are a lot of people who are taking steps to not do the same things that they have been doing for 365 days, or how many ever. What I'm trying to get at is that, people are trying to understand that this is a leash that they've tied to themselves, to their lives, and it's something that you can break through, and you can, do it different.
You think?
So I think within families, it's a little easier for this to happen, and for you to snub the kid also. And secondly, I also feel strangers, because again, it's a hit and run kind of a case where, you just do something wrong, and the kid hasn't even realized whether you have a mustache or not, and you're already off.
So you
And
think that it happens in both situations, like within families
yes.
where you have control over the kid, or by strangers who just want to take up the opportunity and then run away?
Yes, yes. And I mean, I've actually also experienced like a few like people who are, I mean, like I told you, like it's not sometimes about the activity of the harassment. It is the irritation that they see on the victim's face, which gives them satisfaction. which is a very, very sick thing. But like, I mean, it's just the discomfort that they like to see in kids. And it is as horrid and as unbelievable it sounds, it's true. And this is what, like, strangers and like cyclists, and I mean, I'm not trying to stereotype, but like whatever I've seen in life, and I'm just putting that into words. So, see, I again think there are laws, or there are like punishments for like really harsh things out in the society about almost every crime that's happening. But the fact of getting reported is a big deal, because I mean, to make it simpler for our viewers, I'll just call it delivering food. If you have taken food from a restaurant and you're traveling and you're delivering to that person, and then that person is giving you a feedback on your whatever delivery. So now this process of you ordering in the first place, that has become extremely tight. I would say it's become very it's being inflicted by like so many things. There's blackmail, there's threatening, there is more abuse, there is I mean, capturing of things that a kid loves, probably. For a small kid, just imagine, even if you take his favorite super toy and you just tell him that you're not gonna get this, like, if you ever, like, open your mouth, it's enough for him to not do it. So what do you do? What do you do at these points? You take signs. This is where your parenting, or I'm not a parent. I'm nobody to tell anybody how to parent their kid. But I know this much, that if my parents hadn't noticed my mood or my behavior changing when I came back from that drawing class, I don't know how I would have been impacted and how I would be today. I might not be here talking to you about this, because I would still be so scared about what happened then.
Exactly.
And this is PTSD. This is a post-traumatic stress disorder, which happens to people not just at an adult life, or when, like, you're grown up and it's just recently happened. These things happen at a very young age also, and they impact you until the day you live. So I think it's really important for acts to be there, but the process of going and reporting it, that should be emphasized. See, now, actually, I mean, in India as a country, it's very difficult for you to convey what is an abuse and what is not, because many would not call flashers like somebody who's harassing someone. It's all right.
I'd actually put it on silent. I don't know why this doesn't work.
It's just our phone.
Irritating.
Yes, I know.
So, you think flashing is sexual abuse, right?
Yes, I do.
But
And I feel even,
don't.
many people don't. Even bus groping, many people think it's just, less space. It's not. You can make space, and you can, keep your privates a little spaced out. And it's something which is very, I mean, I feel very odd, because I don't know whether it is the fact that I've studied outside and now I've come in and having to go through these things, and it's not that, but it has somehow affected my head, because it does not happen elsewhere. Elsewhere, if you happen to, like, even do like an iota of things that happen out here, it's no looking back. Because I mean, I was glad when I got to know about the POSCO Act, because there's no way that you're coming out of it. If you're once penalized with that, there is it's a very, very heavy crime
punishment. Yeah.
This thing.
So what you were saying, Roshni, about flashing or groping on the bus not being considered as sexual abuse, we call that normalization of these behaviors, which makes you it makes it part of life to just ignore it.
Yeah.
So, do you think there are other behaviors that are actually child sexual abuse or sexual abuse, which we have normalized in our everyday life? I'll give you some examples like showing some nude pictures or cracking sexual jokes. Would you consider this sexual abuse?
Yes, I would, because I feel the fact that in so many movies and in so many places it says if you're not so this much age, you shouldn't go ahead and watch this. So if the fact that the government has levied such a disclaimer before any kind of a program being showcased, it is for a reason, and we need to understand, even if we think that it's fine, we are modern, or we are whatever, and my kid can take it or anything like that. Showing things like this is just something that you can do away with, and so can the kid. Just take him out, show him a tree, he'll be happier. I mean, I just don't understand the fact of showing screens and just getting him involved in things like this at an early age, where you're actually impacting his mind. I mean, it's very odd, because I don't know what influence is it, because we can't call it Western culture influence also, because we do that to most of the things that come in our country. But it's not. It's just originated from, I don't know, mentalities which can't understand the restrictions or the boundaries. I do. I frankly, honestly do. I know a lot of people think that, oh, I don't remember the second grade visit to Switzerland, so why will I remember the third grade abuse that I went through in my garage? These are two very separate things. And it is just as good as you saying, I had an ice cream yesterday for lunch, and before, I mean, 10 days before, you went through a fall, so you remember that, but you don't remember yesterday. So it's not about remembering, or it's not about how much your medulla or your brain can intake. It's really about the impact that that situation has left on you, or on your mind, and a lot of your actions in life thereafter are impacted because of it. It's so possible for me to, because today I don't draw. I don't know whether that's because of that incident, or that's just because I can't draw. I don't know. But, I never tried, and I never want to get into it ever again after that. And my parents were also, they were very like liberal with me. They never like told me draw or like paint or like whatever. It was just a summer school, and all my friends were joining classes. And I was asked, and me and my brother just looked at each other, and we chose drawing. So it's a very non-thought of action, but I mean, I don't draw today, and I'm not saying that it's impacted me drastically and I could have been like a great painter or anything, but I'm saying that it does have, it leaves an impact which is very, it's chronic, it's just stays there with you. They definitely should. They definitely should confront him. And actually speaking, since he's a family relative, they can confront him personally at first. And right after that, because when you're speaking about this in the family, the kid is also being put on the spot. Forget about
Yeah.
the child. He's done what he's done. But when you're doing this in front of every 10 more people, the kid is being looked at. Because the minute you say Chachu did this, the eyes go to the Chachu, and then they directly go to the small kid. So here you are again making him uncomfortable after such a trauma that he's gone through. So that's why speaking to him personally and talking to him, or maybe asking him why he did it, not that anything will justify whatever he says, but knowing why is really important for us. I mean, what was it like? What lured him to do this? I think they should. They really should. Because, I mean, as I told you, all of these habits start at home and they should end at home. Because if you spot it and you snub it, only then can you stand for it. Only then can you stand for your own child. Tomorrow, you cannot be standing at his graduation day ceremony and clapping for him just because he qualified, but because you did not take a step for him when he was so young. So, if you are being a proud parent, be a proud parent from a young age and report it. And however close this chachu or mamu or nanu or whoever it is, I think, standing for right is most important, not only for the society, but for your child also.
But there is one ideal way of handling it and a real way. So the ideal way would be to approach the police because they have to do what is right for the child. But do you think in our society this will happen?
I'm just going to look down on the floor and smile. I'm not going to say anything here. Because,
Okay.
I mean, it's a very, I don't know. I mean, again, like I have no comments to make here. Idea, because I think suddenly the hiding of the name makes it all the more easier for them to do this act in the first place. Because otherwise, when you're going to the police, you're telling your neighbors first, then you're arranging a car or whatever, then you're going to the police station, then you're going in making a statement, then some police guy might come up to your house to clarify things or whatever. So this is a interaction with the police force 5 to 6 times, which is not only making it hard to convey what was done, but also getting into the limelight of the society, which is again something which people run away from. Not everybody wants to get into the limelight. So I think this is a good idea. See, it's a start. I mean, it's a start for you to at least, make the first step of going and doing this. So, when I was talking about the limelight, I mean, obviously, it wasn't just the cause that was coming into the light of abuse of the child, but also that how Indian neighbors or like societies in like India are like, it'll be like police was there at their place. I don't know what happened, someone got murdered, someone got killed, and it just like snowballs into things which haven't even happened, and you're just like in the news. And so these are just some things that people do want to avoid. I mean, we're talking about abuse and police coming to homes. People were not even okay with getting a COVID stamp on their houses that this is a quarantine house right now, because they were like, how can we get stamped, like how can we. So it's really those small barriers that you got to break, and this is a start, I feel. Well, see, so I mean, at my level and in my capacity, if I were to recommend a single strategy and, be careful and sensitive and like, because there are different things that work across all schools, and, there are more personal thoughts and experiences that are in all of this. But for me, it would be to listen. It would be to, take the cues. It would be to push the parents to know more than what is being shown to them already, because nothing has a greater impact than really listening to the children in your care and investing extra time in finding out what is going on with their lives. And this has to be without I mean, irrespective of the gender your child is. I mean,
Yes.
absolutely irrespective. And even if it is something, I mean, different or odd according to the society, as my small boy coming in and talking about some other uncle doing something, it shouldn't be something which is like a shock to you. It should be like a reason of fear, as much as when your little girl will come and say something.
Yeah.
Or when your boy will come and speak about a lady. It's possible in every fashion, and it's not just really, rape or like abusive things. There are more things which impact a child, and it's all the more important for parents to realize this and listen. So if I could, I would just like, carry out initiatives which are leading the tagline that listen, because it helps more than acting. Ramya, I'm a Rakshit, and I'm proud to be one.
But let me first thank you for joining us on this session on Safe Spaces, and let me formally thank you for our viewers too. So thank you, Roshni.
Thank you so much, Ramya. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.